hello everybody. Very glad I'm here today, especially because it was a bit tricky. I arrived very late last night, at 2 in the morning. When the alarm rang this morning, I said, well, should I really go here? And of course. But today I'm going to tell you a little bit about business transformation, a specific part of management, or management 2.0. And I will weave in some of my own experiences on examples. He already mentioned one of the first example, which is I don't have an office, I don't need an office, and I will tell you why. And why is this part of management 2.0? Who am I? My name is Christoph Steiger, I'm German, I live in Munich, I'm rarely there, so part of that is, of the job description, is traveling a lot. That's the reason why I don't have an office. What do we do? Business transformation services, that is within SAP, a unit that is dealing with what you call in other companies management consulting. So we're working similar to what the typical, let's say, McKinsey, Spain, Boston's of this world are doing, Ketikani. It's all about transforming business and innovating businesses. I will come back to that, but when I talk about business transformation services, what does it typically mean? We see that many projects and programs that typically have the intention to transform the business, to change something. Many of them fail, and I have some interesting, some prominent examples of really quite serious failures in transformations. So if you look at the first one, BMW, I myself used to work for BMW in the 90s. I spent 5 years with the firm. Was one of those poor guys who were sent over to the UK to integrate Rover, and obviously this story failed big time. I think the company wasted about 4 billion euros and sold the Rover company in 2000, and it took again another 10 years for the firm to recover. So this is one very prominent example, and I must say I learned a lot when I was there. And typically people learn the most from failures, not from successes. Another great example is the Airbus story. Now you're flying with these fancy, huge Airbus A380 plane. It's working properly, it's a good product, but it took really some time to get that up in the air. Again, this one failed big time. It's very expensive for the company. So the question, and there are a couple of more examples that I brought, but there are a lot more. Now you see this all over the place, but in just that the art of management is quite old. So there are some guys that were working in quite sophisticated manner, it was studied a lot. And why is it that management still fails and transformation still fails? Now, we in SAP Business Transformation Services, we looked a bit deeper in this area. We can target in this direction. That's it. I should stay here. And we said, well, what makes a business transformation successful? What is required? What is needed? And I just had the pleasure to spend the day yesterday in Basel at the university with a professor. Actually, our think tank is located at the university in Basel. And we have a whole team that is working, investigating, studying how does business transformation work. They're specialized in that. And they come up with some really interesting stuff. So they also look into what does cloud mean for a company today? How do you get there? What's the business value? What's the benefit of cloud? Is there any? Or is it just cost? And I can say there is some value, but it needs to be worked out in detail. They also look at the digital economy, the digital enterprise. How does it work? How does a digital company will look like in the future, in 5 years, in 10 years from now? It will, well, one part is what I told before, that is, this is my office here. So I don't need anything more than this office. What do? I'm in charge of BTS across the region called EMEA, Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So what I do, I travel a lot. I spend all my time at airports, and fortunately I'm hosted here by my colleagues and friends in Turkey as often as possible. Then they share an office with me. I'm very thankful for that. But basically today, no, you don't need all this. You need a cell phone, you need a laptop, you need juice, power supply, and Wi-Fi. That's what you need. But there's a bit more that you need to manage a good transformation and make it successful. Now, I would like to share with you a couple of ideas and thoughts. So the first one is the key principles of a successful transformation. So, so where do we start with a transformation? We typically want to have a stable ground. We want to understand where are we, what is the current situation. We use tools such as benchmarking, health checks. There are a whole lot of methodologies that were developed to develop this common ground. When I look at Liga, for example, he's a CFO. Clarity about the financial situation is always required. Before you don't have that, before you don't know what are your current costs, what is your budget, how deep is your pocket, how much can you afford today and in the upcoming next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. You cannot start a transformation. You need to know where you are today, as well as in terms of technology, people, processes. You need to have a solid ground. So once you have that, and many programs already fail there because you don't know what you have and what you can rely on. Second step is you define where do you want to go to. What is the target? What do we want to achieve in terms of your future business? Whether you want to have a new business model, you want to have change business processes, develop new products, enter new markets. You need to define what is the target. Otherwise, you'll never meet the target. Again, this is very simple, very simple, but some of the core reasons why those projects that I showed you before failed is because these two steps were not in place and were not taken in the right sequence. Many projects start too early without knowing where they're heading to. And then the third element, which is really core, is to have your roadmap. How do I get from as is to this situation? There are many possible ways to go from here to there. But what is the best one? What is the right sequence? Where do I have to start first? Because I need to have it in place before I can make the next step. How many resources do I need? And what is the business case? What is the reason, the why? How can I justify the investment for my large transformation? Again, this is very simple. For you, it may sound too simple, too easy, but it's a foundation for any successful transformation. If you don't have that in place, if you don't follow the 3 steps, it's highly likely that you will fail. And then, of course, someone has to make sure that everything that was planned will be executed and implemented properly, and that we follow what we call eventual realization. Any program can be done very well from a technical perspective. If we look at software projects, they work very well. However, if they don't realize the benefits that were expected, the technology may work, but the program still is not successful. It can be a big disaster because you wasted the transformation. So these are some principles. Now, as I said yesterday, I've been at our think tank at the University of Basel. What they have done, they have developed a methodology around business transformation. Because what they found is there are some core principles required to manage this, what I call the implementation successful. Now, this is not rocket science, but it's very helpful to have a framework to know that, for example, it's not only about putting the right processes in place, but there are a couple of key elements that without, for example, a clear guidance, leadership, and the culture, the program will fail. You need to have that in place. Then there are a couple of hands-on techniques like having the right strategy in place. Now, each of those elements is not new. This is all relatively management 1.0 style. 2.0 is how to use it, how do you apply it, how do you make sure that you keep your people on board, for example, and what we typically use is such a framework. I don't go through the details. I just want to. I think the material will be distributed, so I think you will get all this stuff. But to see that a formulary transformation itself successfully requires a lot of disciplines that need to work hand in hand and in a well-shaped manner. And if we use this framework very often to perform health checks, like companies call us, say, well, see, Christoph, we have a little problem, see, it doesn't work properly, we're spending too much time, we don't see the results. Can you tell us what's wrong? So we typically use this approach to create a health check with very quick interviews and techniques. So within 2 days, you typically know what's wrong applying those techniques, and then you get a kind of heat map where you say, well, strategy is all fine, but you know what? The people are not lined up. They don't understand where you're going to. They're not following you. You're a big problem. You need to do something in this direction to get your people involved. Everything is fine. And all other kind of flavors. Now, what we also did is, together with a network of academia, driven by the university in Basel, but also supported by universities such as Harvard, Oxford, Cambridge, the university in Brisbane. In this network we have investigated 3,600 transformation programs in the last 10 years all over the world to identify what works, what are the mechanisms, what are the principles, why do transformation programs fail, and why are they a success. Now we came up with some lessons learned. Let's start with the meta management. So what we learned is you need a kind of chief politician. Someone who's really mastering the internal communication, the politics in a firm, or in a university, or wherever you do some transformation. Not the one who's the best technical expert. You need one who's really leading the pack, who can defend the position. We looked at strategy. Yes, as management 1.0. I mean, of course we need to have a strategy, but many programs do not have a clear strategy. And when you don't have that, how do you know whether you're moving into the right direction? You can't. Value management I discussed before. If you don't have your financial figures right, it will be a disaster. It will be horrible. Risk management. We found in assessing these 3,600 big transformation programs that the size of a program is not such a problem. Big programs can be managed with all the techniques to do that. We can do, people can do, companies can do that. But a problem that occurs when a program is too long. Time is really killing your program. If it's 1 year, it's 2 years, that's fine. If you turn into 3, 4, 5, 6 year programs, the risk of failure increases exponentially. So lessons learned from that is try not to set up 2 big mega projects. A nice example. Not sure who of you have been in Berlin, in Germany, but they are trying to build an airport since years. And it's not working, and I'm not sure it will ever work. This is a mega project, and what killed the program? Time. It took too long, because the legislation in the meantime changed, and they're simply not allowed. The airport is outdated, they're not allowed to go live. So time is #1 killer of big programs. Process management. In my early consulting career, I did a lot of process management. We painted huge walls of processes, and it all went to the bin or somewhere, or no one ever used it. And we spent tons of time and money on that. And we're very proud with booklets of process descriptions. It's nice to have, but what counts at the end is the change, is the impact, the change of behavior. IT transformation, I cut this short. There are methodologies such as Agile, which work very well and can be applied. I think we are meanwhile mastering this part. Change management, one of the biggest failures of transformation programs. Don't win the hearts, the heads, and the guts of the people. They will not follow you. You can have the best strategy, you can have your financials in place, you can have the right program, everything, but what happens if people do not believe in your new strategy, in your new setup? They will simply not implement that. This is a nice one, especially I like this phrase, amateur skills can't win the Champions League. If you don't train the people, if you don't build the knowledge, the capabilities, everything can be fine, but again, waste of money. Program management is an interesting one. We have all these descriptions of governance and program, the steering committees and everything in place, and every project has this. But what every project also has is a kind of hidden governance. There's always hidden champions in the organization that are really driving the organization. You always have a formal project leader, a formal steering committee, and so forth. But typically, you need to know who are the real decision makers in the organization and in the program, and who you need to influence to make a program successful. All right, I see that my time is over. I just want to leave you some ideas and impression that if you're interested in business transformation, that you can use. There are books that are written by Professor Dr. Axel Uhl, which is the head of this think tank that I mentioned. They are available. You see, is that there? Probably somewhere. Well, anyway, you see the URL link down there. So have a look at those books. They're available on Amazon. There is a quarterly journal called 360. It's also available online. There are lots of case studies, very well published, easy to use. You can order the magazine as an old-fashioned printout or as a PDF book. Everything is possible, and this is free of charge, but very easy to use. Great storylines about big transformation programs. And what we typically do is we have an annual event where we bring together the, let's say, 200 biggest SAP customers that are involved in business innovation and business transformation programs. We work together, we invite them once a year. This time to Berlin, last year was in Washington, so it's a global event. And it's not a marketing event, it is we don't have I don't think we have any SAP speech there. We're just organizing the framework so that people can spend time together 2 weeks and to share thoughts. This is extremely interesting source for the business transformation practitioners to mingle, to share thoughts, to share experiences. So anyone who's interested in staying in Berlin in the famous Adler Hotel, there is also a website for this one. Last but not least, I would like to say thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Holly, for the invitation.